بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولي المتقين نكال الظالمين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله الملك الحق المبين محمد رسول الله صادق الوعد الأمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Great honor for me to be here in this beautiful Musjid, Bakr Siddique in Pretoria. There are warm hearts and active minds, the spirit of Islamic brotherhood, alhamdulillah, amongst the Muslims of South Africa still a joy to behold. The topic which brings us together this evening is one which we think we know, but which, as I'm going to suggest, we don't think enough about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the beautiful sunnah of the chosen one, alayhi salatu wasalam, who shows forth in this world all the forms of perfection in the ibadat and the mu'amalat, in every aspect of human life, private and public, social, economic, spiritual, martial, in all dimensions of the complex richness of the human experience, has granted us through this treasure chest things which glisten and glimmer and attract us. Sometimes we take those jewels without fully gazing into their shimmering depths. Let's just consider this question of husn al-jiwara, the traditional subject heading, being an excellent neighbour. And we're all familiar with the basic Islamic rules here, and the many hadiths in which the Holy Prophet ﷺ really nails this home and insists in quite striking, even alarming terms on its indispensable place in the repertory of the Muslim virtues. من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم جاره. In some hadith he says, Sallallahu Wasallam alayhi, whoever believes in Allah and the last day, let him honour his neighbour. This comes in a complex of hadiths with different endings, and the ulama will say this is the same hadith with different versions that have come down to us, or it's different hadiths. These are technical discussions. One of the versions is فَلْيُكْرِمْ ضَيْفًا, let him honour his guest. And in another, فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ يَصْمُتْ, let him speak what is beautiful or let him hold his peace. And it's part of the rich treasury of akhlaq related hadiths, all to do with encouraging us to follow in the footsteps of he who was sent to perfect the noble qualities of character. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, I am sent only to perfect the noble qualities of character. And of these, one which detains us this evening is how we deal with neighbours. So, the Holy Prophet has said in this hadith, if you have iman in Allah and the last day, in other words, it's not just idle belief in the Supreme Being, but you know that you'll be taken to task for your behaviour in accordance with that belief, or otherwise, then you are enjoined to honour your neighbour. And in another hadith, also a sound hadith, mentioned by Imam Bukhari, لا يزال جبريل يوصيني بالجار حتى ظننت أنه سيورثه. He says, alayhi salatu wasalam, Jibreel continued to urge upon me the duty of good behaviour to the neighbour, until I thought that he would give the neighbour a share in one's inheritance. In other words, so many rights does the neighbour have over us, but he almost becomes one of the inheritors to one's estate, along with sisters, brothers, cousins, and so forth, the neighbour as well, almost, but not quite. So this makes him almost a family member, almost a kind of sibling. And there are other hadith in which the Holy Prophet ﷺ urges certain practical things about how you deal with a neighbour. Hospitality looking after your neighbour and bringing him or her into the life of your family is essential. The Prophet ﷺ was invited to a meal. وجد مرقة, they had made a stew, and he said, هل أهديت منه لجارك اليهودي? Have you given some of it to your Jewish neighbour? And that's what we'll see, this idea of Muslim neighbour, the Jewish neighbour, the non-Muslim neighbour, turns out to be important for the agenda of the chosen one, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And in fact, there's a lot of hadiths. There's another one which I like, من كان له حائط فلا يبيعه حتى يعرضه على جاره. Whoever has an enclosure or a garden or a piece of land, he shouldn't sell it until he has first offered it for sale to his neighbour. In other words, before you go to the estate agent, the realtor, or put it on the open market, you see who is actually the neighbour who shares a boundary with that piece of land, and it's part of good neighbourliness that it might be advantageous to that neighbour to have first shout at acquiring it, and therefore you mention it to that neighbour and you offer it for sale to that neighbour before you put it out on the open market. These are ancient principles, but they are as alive today as they were in ancient times. And so many other areas in which he insists on the rights of the neighbour. Not one of you has iman حتى يأمن جاره بوائقه. Not one of you has iman, has faith, until his neighbour is safe from his bad behaviour, which can be your dog barking too loud, or your kids playing music too loud late in the evening, or letting your tree go over the fence and dropping whatever it is, leaves, rotten fruit and so forth, onto the neighbour's roses. All of those things, the neighbour has the right in Islam to be protected from your bad neighbourliness, and this is important. And important today as ever in ancient Arabia. Well, if you were living in the desert, as most people did, a neighbour was probably somebody over the next mountain. The boundary posts weren't particularly fixed, and if need be, if they were a pain in the neck, or they thought you were a pain in the neck, you could just pack up your tents and head off over the horizon. But in a city, neighbourliness is important, and you have to remember that the Holy Prophet ﷺ is saying these things and is sketching out this beautiful fadila, this beautiful virtue about good neighbourliness in a context in the seerah where good neighbourliness was not being shown to him. Some of you might have seen the beautiful book, nice illustrated coffee table book about the house of Sayyidah Khadija, radiallahu anha, which in recent redevelopments in the Haram in Mecca came to the surface and photographs were taken. And the book really is a study of the house of Khadija, which was always revered by the Muslims from the time of the Sahaba, and made sure that nothing would be changed. And it was one of the things that you did when you went to for your Hajj, in order to revitalize your Iman and to feel strongly part of that ancient and blessed world. So they found the outline of the rooms of the house of Sayyidah Khadija, and there's the room in which she gave birth to Fatima, and that's still known, and there's the kind of lobby area, really small, as you can imagine. Small houses then were usually just of one story. And in the middle there's the Musalla Nabi, there's the area where the Holy Prophet ﷺ would pray. And just over it there's a kind of sloping roof area. And according to the historians, the reason why he would pray under this kind of slope is that his neighbours, the mushrikeen of Quraysh, egged on by Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab and so forth, would throw stones over the wall so that they would hit him as he was praying in this area, which was open to the sky. So there was this little area that would deflect the stones from coming over. Bad neighbours. He suffered from bad neighbours. Eventually they drove him out. And in Medina also problems with neighbours, munafiqeen. some of the Bani Israel, others whose loyalty was suspect, but still he brings us these beautiful teachings about the huge sacrifices we have to make in exchange. This is the principle of idfa' billati hiya ahsan. Push, repel against something that is unpleasant or evil with something that is better. فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. And then, if you do this, the one between you and him there was enmity shall become like your best friend, like a close friend. That's good advice. We have neighbours, and neighbours may be there for years and decades. You really want to maintain good relations, so you put up with their outrages, but you should not reciprocate. And this is part of the prophetic adab and good courtesy. But we mentioned this issue that he says specifically in this hadith, and you ask why does he say, have you given some of this stew to your Jewish neighbour? Or Muslims as well. Why does he single out the Jewish neighbour? Because sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he wanted to point out that the jar, the neighbour, and the duty of husn al-jiwar, good neighbourliness, is not just about your Muslim neighbour. In a list of people to whom one must display good character and who have rights over one, the Holy Quran lists وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ, which means something like the neighbour who is close and the neighbour who is strange. And the commentators talk about this, and they say one meaning of it is family members who are neighbours. And neighbours who are not family members, they all have rights over you. The commentators and those who look at the hadith of Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, there's a very beautiful commentary on this issue of husn al-jiwar, say one of the meanings of this, the near neighbour, the far neighbour, is the Muslim neighbour and the non-Muslim neighbour. And Ibn Rajab says the neighbour, and it's a good question, how does one define a neighbour? The guy next door is my neighbour. What about the person on the other side? When does neighbourhood end? And usually, in Islamic ethics, and Ibn Rajab explains this, it means the nearest 40 houses to your own. That's a rough rule of thumb. You can see somebody as a neighbour because they're physically close, but there might be more than that number separating you from them, but that's the general rule. And in Islamic cities, historically, you had the institution of a mahalla. A city like Cairo, or Istanbul, or Sarajevo, or Samarkand would be approached from afar by a traveller who would then see the city gates, which usually would be locked at night. And inside the city, there would be different districts called mahallas. And each district would be made up of usually quite a small number of households. And very often, those mahallas would have their own mayor, and they would have their own night watchman, and they would have their own agreements on how the streets were to be cleaned, and they would have their own agreements on how water was to be supplied to the neighbourhood. These things were done locally rather than by the state. And very often too they would have a gate which would be shut at night. So this is the later evolution of this idea that there is a neighbourhood towards which you have particular duties and responsibilities. But Ibn Rajab says also this can mean the Muslim and the non-Muslim neighbour, in which case we invoke the hadith that there are three kinds of neighbours, al-jiran al-thalath. The first kind of neighbour is the one who is a Muslim. The second kind of neighbour is the one who is Muslim and related. The third kind of neighbour is the one who is neither of those things, but who is still considered to be a neighbour. And the scholars say that the one who has the most rights on you is actually a member of your family who is next door, Muslim member of your family. He has more rights, but they all do have rights. And it's important for us in this age of community polarisation to recognise this. Whoever it is who happens to have moved in next to you, Even if he seems to be a pain in the neck and is playing his heavy metal late at night, he still has rights. Numerous rights. The Holy Prophet is saying he almost has a share in your inheritance. He says, none of you has faith until he is excellent towards his neighbour, and his neighbour is safe from his own misdeeds. These are significant sayings. Now we might say, well, nowadays it's all different, isn't it? We don't live in these ancient cities with gates that are closed at night and a night watchman who patrols at night. It's all different, and our social networks can be global. We're all wired, we're all online. What is the likelihood that the person we're emailing on any given evening happens to be the guy next door? That's a good point. But it reminds us that we're losing something by looking to the horizons, to people who we happen to be interested in, or someone else on the planet, and actually neglecting the superior rights of the person who is physically next door. One of the great catastrophes and tragedies of the modern age is that people may be sending 1,000 SMSs a month, but they may not even know the name of the people in the house opposite. But those people have rights, don't you? In Sharia, you're supposed to be looking out for them, but you can't do that if you've not really made their acquaintance. And this is something which we are all, to a greater or lesser extent, guilty. That the Sharia says these people have huquq, have rights over you. And it's one of the initiatives that Muslims should take in any neighbourhood to try and make sure that they are aware of who's around and who perhaps is needy, who is poor, who is lonely, who has got issues, who needs a bit of help with the shopping. We Muslims should be in there, and we should acquire the reputation of being the people who most care in our neighbourhoods. This modern idea of every house being a kind of fortress, and I'm really not interested in the random fact that a widow lives next door to me. This is something dreadful, and there is a lot of loneliness, a lot of brokenness, and we need to be alert to that. In England, the National Health Service now recognises loneliness as a medical condition. Apparently acute loneliness is as bad for your physical health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. We're not designed to be lonely. We're not asocial animals. We're social animals. We exist in families. We're designed for that. We are creatures of mu'amala, and religion insists on this. So this tragedy of loneliness which afflicts us in today's age is something we ought to be on the lookout for, and to be contrite if we have not looked out for neighbours who are suffering from loneliness, particularly the elderly. So this is one of the meanings of this. Another of the meanings of it is that this adab, which has to connect to the neighbour, should also pertain to people of other religions. And in this time, this age of polarization, when everybody is anxious and freaking out at the strange things that are unsettling the world, whether it be what's happening in Washington, or Moscow, or New Delhi, or Vienna, or wherever, people are kind of retreating into a suspiciousness of people who are not like themselves. One of the big facts in European politics now. People are unhappy with all kinds of economic things that are happening to their countries. Maybe they still haven't come out of the 2008 recession. Maybe their earning power is not what it used to be. And unfortunately, such is the perverse xenophobia of human nature, the people they blame is usually people who are not like themselves. Refugees, foreigners, racial minorities, asylum seekers. It's a very strange reaction. It's the fault of the economy. It's the fault of the massive polarization of wealth between the super rich and the super poor. These are structural imbalances. And if instead of complaining about that, you're complaining about the gypsy or whoever it is, the Albanian who's recently moved in, it's not his fault. In fact, his presence is probably going to be a major asset for the economy. He's likely to work hard. He's likely to pay his taxes. he's likely to obey the law because he really doesn't want to be picked up by the police and sent home again. Migrants are usually a major economic asset. But this is part of our reality in modern Europe. This xenophobia, this bad neighbourliness. We need to overcome it. We need to look out for those people. And we need to be people who are hospitable. Remember, this hadith that we began with has these different versions. One of them is whoever believes in Allah and the last day, let him honour his neighbour. But another one is whoever believes in Allah and the last day, let him honour his guest. So people who are guests in our countries, who are recent arrivals, who are illegals, who are asylum seekers, whose situation is precarious and who are fearful, they also have claims over Muslims, whether or not they are Muslims themselves. It's part of the beauty of the seerah of the chosen ones of the Prophet, that his people have been so torn into shreds by tribalism, and there had been absolutely no unifying principle in Arabia ever. Perhaps for hundreds of thousands of years, they had always been divided into these tribes without an overarching law, always engaged in vendettas, confused, tit-for-tat killings, on and on and on, sometimes vendettas not resolved for centuries, senseless random killings. And then the religion of Islam comes, and he says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, not that the tribes should no longer exist. In fact, we have the right to belong to our particular peoples. Shu'ub wa qaba'il, these were found in the Quran, and regarded as amongst its signs. And we should celebrate this rainbow that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created human beings in. But no longer do the tribes, whether or not they're immediate neighbours with each other, have any kind of legal significance. Whereas once your tribal affiliation, you were from Qais, or from Tamim, or from Banu Hanifa, or Banu Hudayr, or whatever, that was the most important thing about you. Now it was just a matter of interest and a matter of pride, but not something that could ever justify vendetta or random killings. Instead, every member of the tribe is equal under the one new revealed law. It was a very drastic and radical thing that he brought, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Some of the scholars say that he was sent, alayhi salatu wasalam, to this people of ignorance. مَا أُنْذِرَ آبَاؤُهُمْ فَهُمْ غَافِلُونَ. Their forefathers were not warned. They are heedless. Why? It's an interesting question. You think about Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, sent to the children of Israel. They were already monotheists. They already knew their 10 commandments. They already revered the prophets. They just needed their tradition to be tweaked and changed and purified and uplifted. It was an amendment to something that was already understood. Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was sent to people whose values seemed to be the opposite of his own. They believed in thousands of deities. He called them to believe in just one God. In transformation. They had no particular interest in life after death. Many of them had no belief in it. And he brought them to a new worldview whereby the Akhirah was the thing that was before their eyes, and which was more important to them and more real than anything in the dunya. Huge transformation. So he brings them from one end of the religious spectrum right to the other. In those few short years, the 23 years of the seerah, an amazing achievement. And then sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he takes them from this bad neighbourliness of the ancient Arabian way of, you've stolen one of my camels, so I'll steal one of your camels, and then you do it to me, I do it to you, and you kill one of my people, kill one of your people. And that's what they had. Bakr, the vengeance of the Jahiliyyah. The only way in which the affairs between the bad neighbourly tribes were regulated and abolishes that. And all of these dima, bloodlet debts are abolished. The conquest of Makkah and the assimilation of the vast wasteland of Arabia to the Islamic State. And instead, every single person irrespective of their tribe, is equal under a law which the Arabs had never had before. So they became good neighbours the first time ever. And it said that the woman could travel from one end of Arabia to the next to the other and be completely safe and unmolested. Inconceivable before the rise of Islam. This is part of the greatness of his accomplishment. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we should not underestimate it. But then remember that the Muslims then spread out. So powerful was the transformation in the hearts of the Sahaba that the transformation survived the terrible shuddering shock of the death of the founder, ﷺ, and the armies went out, and the delegations went out, and within a century, the world was under the sway of Islam from the Atlantic to the Oxus and the Truxaltes in Central Asia. A civilization created almost overnight, almost without precedent in the history of the world. And in that civilization, despite the certainties of the Quran, the insistence of the religion of Tawheed that no compromise is acceptable in Allah's religion, still, instead of a debonair attitude, an attitude of hatred and expropriation and expulsion, the principle of good neighbourliness prevailed. You know the great story of Siddique Umar ibn Khattab as he rides into the city of Jerusalem and is invited by Sophronius, the patriarch of the city, to say his prayers, because it's the prayer time, in the church of the Holy Sepulchre, by whom he is placed in prison. And Amir al-Mu'mineen declines and prays in a nearby place. And he explains it's so that in future years that place would not be taken over by Muslims and used as a mosque on the pretext that Amir al-Mu'mineen had prayed there. What kind of greatness of soul is that? Extraordinary. They just won a huge battle against the Byzantines. The Byzantines are preparing to counterattack and to wipe out the Muslims. The religions have different theologies, but this moment of generosity. And this is signalled really in the Holy Prophet leading of all of the Anbiya in prayer on the night of the Isra and the Mi'raj. Us as a religion of good neighbourliness, and it is symbolized by the fact that he leads the other prophets in prayer. وَقَدَّمَتْكَ جَمِيعُ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ بِهِمْ فِي مَوْقِفٍ كُنْتَ فِيهِ صَاحِبَ الْعَلَمِ. And all of the other prophets put you forward as their imam in a procession. You were the standard bearer. This is the inclusivity of Islam and the fact that it is uniquely equipped to provide an ethos of neighbourliness to Muslims and to non-Muslims, to be Dhil Qurba and the neighbour who is Junub, a stranger, the other. SubhanAllah. So in these cities that have been great citadels of Christianity for centuries, we find the Muslims existing as good neighbours. If you go to many of those cities, you'll find that there are churches to this day, which have been churches since before the rise of Islam. And this is part of good neighbourliness, and it is an indispensable part of the authenticity of our religion. Quran has been mandated, expounded and commanded in the sound hadith. So the implications to this of those who are living in minority situations would not be more clear. Just think about it. The early Muslims are settling on the outskirts of ancient cities, and they're a minority. For centuries, they are a minority. And slowly the populations convert. They weren't forced to. It's not permissible to force them. But slowly they convert. They would not have done so had the Muslims who settled amongst them not dealt with them according to beautiful akhlaq, and had they not been good neighbours. Why should I want to follow my next door neighbour's religion? It is chucking his lawn clippings over the fence onto my roses every Saturday morning. It's not going to happen. Only people who have good akhlaq are likely to appeal. So we know that the early Muslims dealt with their neighbours on the basis of these beautiful akhlaq. And that is how they melted the souls of so many countless millions. So those of us who are living today in situations where we are minorities need to remember this. It's not some kind of concession to minority status in a pluralistic liberal democracy that we were nice to the people next door. No, it is an absolute Islamic requirement. He has said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, if you make a soup, offer some of it to your Jewish neighbour. He's telling you to do this. He is saying that the neighbourhood, these 40 houses, includes the non-Muslim as well as the Muslim. And this is the basis of da'wah, that great noble prophetic activity in which we unfortunately so often fall down. How are we to say that we are good neighbours if our neighbours don't know anything about Islam? We might share with them a cup of rice occasionally, or a gossip over the fence, or maybe even cooperate in making a petition to the city council about some issue of common concern. But the most important thing that we should share should be the haqq. And the first lesson should be to demonstrate that the haqq makes a difference in our lives by making us beautiful people. All too often, we don't succeed in the task of da'wah. People need to think, all of those other people living around me, they don't really want to know me, but my Muslim neighbour, when I moved in, introduced himself, brought me some food, wanted to get to know me, wanted to let me know, wanted to know if there was anything that could be done for them. Such a simple thing, such an inexpensive thing, but such a heartwarming gesture. We should get into this habit. We should scan our neighbourhoods, see who's new, not just who's only an isolated and needed help, but who's new. And when they arrive, we should be the first. The people of La ilaha illallah should be the first to welcome them, to offer them something simple, to explain that we can keep an eye on their house maybe when they're away. Any basic neighbourly things like that. Obvious things, cheap things, easy things. It should be the Muslims who do this. So many other things seem to rest on this. And one of the things that has been occupying my thoughts of late has been cultural courtesy. Now we know that we are different to non-Muslims, whether or not they're neighbours, but respect for their ways is an indispensable part of good neighbourliness. Now, if they're engaged in certain activities that are clearly vicious and not in keeping with the basis of human decency, then those things are not to be respected. But the other things, the larger things of their culture, we should find it within ourselves to respect. The lower part of human nature, when we see somebody different, looks for faults in that person in order to justify our own sense of superiority. But the prophetic way is always to look for what is best in other people, the most beautiful thing in their values. And unfortunately, we Muslims all too often say, well, these kuffar or these, whoever it might be, they do X, Y, and Z. And maybe many of them do X, Y, and Z. But what is it within us that wants to mention the ugly things within them, rather than notice the good thing that exists in everybody? The reason is we're insecure, we're following our ego, we want to feel superior, we're not comfortable, and therefore we put them down. If you spend time with the great ulama of this ummah, you'll notice that they have a different approach. They don't like it when people's inner instinct is to fault find or to see ugly things in others. Why? Because that is from the nafs. We have within ourselves nafs al-amara bis-su', the self that is always looking for the ugliest in every situation and feasting on it. But they also have this amazing ruh, the highest part of us, whose seat is the heart, which craves beauty and light. We're caught between these two principles. Or had they known when they're today we have guided man to the two paths, there is the gravity that brings us down into the darkness, into the mud, And there is also something within us that longs to fly, that longs to rise up, that craves beauty. There's something within us that actually is interested in looking at something ugly, and is kind of happy when we see an ugly trait in somebody else. But there's also something within us that should be the stronger, the better part, that loves to see beauty. And this is a test that we can apply to ourselves. When we encounter other people, or other places, or other situations, is our first instinct to look at the ugly things in that person, or that place, or that situation, or that institution? And if so, why is it that we have that craving? What kind of nourishment is ugliness giving to us? Surely the nourishment that the soul requires is beauty. The sound human being loves beauty, loves symmetry, loves goodness, and our instinct when encountering people should always be to notice the best things about them. And this is one of the most beautiful and moving things that you'll find if you spend time with the people of Allah, with the awliya, that their instinct is always to see the best in others. Which means, of course, that they have pleasant lives. Instead of walking through a world in which everybody seems to have so many faults, you may be aware of those faults, but their focus is going to be on the virtues of those people, on the beautiful things that they do, the good things in their culture and their language and their way of life, to focus on those things. That's what we in modern Europe are failing to do. We who are bad neighbours, we see people swimming in the Mediterranean, coming to us from countries shattered by war, or famine, or economic collapse, and we look at them until we can find something that's wrong with them, and that's going to justify not giving them a passport. This isn't everything. And it's the opposite of good neighbourliness, and it's the opposite of hospitality, these two fundamental prophetic virtues. So this could be a challenge for us, I think. We could look at ourselves in every situation, after we meet somebody, after we see something new and unfamiliar, and think, was it my instinct to notice the darker things in that person or that situation? Or was it my first reaction to notice what they thought was good about them? They said that one of the great teachers was walking with his murids, his disciples, and they passed by the rotting carcass of a donkey, the most disgusting, stinking spectacle. And all of the murids said, what a horrible and disgusting and foul thing that is. But the Shaykh, the teacher, said, have you noticed how white are its teeth? Because the way of the wali is to see whatever is best in any situation. And that might to us seem not very cool, it might not gratify the ego. But in fact, if you think about it, and your whole life is spent like that, whenever you've met some people, your memories of that situation will be happy ones. You'll be uplifted. And maybe if you notice the best in other people, your own standards will be raised and you'll want to comply with those good things that you've seen in those other people as well. If you only notice their faults and their vices, and we like to talk about them to other people and to ourselves, chances are that you will be more tolerant of those vices in yourself. So let's take this as a lesson. Let's see the white teeth of any rotten and obnoxious situations that we might come across. Let's be more optimistic, because our souls should be craving beauty, not ugliness, truth, not falsehood. And those situations are a mixture of the two. So this is part of good neighbourliness, and this is part of the mahasin al-akhlaq in Islam. So what's the take-home from all of this? What have we learnt? What have we gained? Well, we've learnt that even though these teachings come to us from a very different and very distant time and place, in fact they speak to us as universals. And this is part of the greatness, the brilliance, one of the indications of the truthfulness of the way of the Holy Prophet that these detailed injunctions come to us from so long ago. We can see so immediately how they could apply today. And then we think, usually with shame, But this is a challenge to ourselves and a reminder that we have not lived up to certain basic good akhlaq. And a reminder also of how fond we are of giving way to the lower, darker, gravity side of our natures. How easy it is to pass negative judgment on others because that makes us feel superior. That is the way of the insecure. That is the way of the munafiq. That is the way of the weak in faith. We need to watch out for this bad look, this bad quality, this vice. How common it is we become an ummah of grumblers, an ummah of blamers, an ummah of fault finders, an ummah that stands, crowds and others, and other shoppers and other people in the masjid, and when we find something wrong, we feel so happy that we're superior. And when we see something good, we think, I hope he's not better than me. I thought I was the best person in this masjid. All these ugly demonic voices that whisper unchallenged within ourselves. So much about the world is going wrong, we can't do anything about it. But the things that go wrong within our own selves, we can do something about. The faults in other people, we just speculate about. We think that we understand them and their vices, but we don't know. But ourselves, we can scrutinize our own selves. We can be quite realistic about our vices. Particularly when we read the Seerah of the Chosen One, we see how the Sahaba work. We measure ourselves against that luminous yardstick. Yeah. There is no time like the present to turn around, to make a difference, to try and illuminate ourselves with the beautiful teachings of the Mustafa sallallahu alayhi. Because his teachings truly are not just possible in our time. They're not just a lifestyle option amongst many. They're not something that we adopt because we're Muslims and this is our identity. They are there because they're better than the alternatives and because they lift us up to a position of nobility which should make us and our communities and our neighbourhoods shine. And it's not happening. People are not coming to us, into our masajid, into our households, into our madaris, because they know that these are places of imminent nobility and virtue. Unfortunately, except for a few limited exceptions. But in a time where so much is in the grip of greed and lowliness and backbiting, and the mass media is nothing other than a huge festival of human weakness and vice and the desire to learn and gossipy way about the weaknesses and the failings of others in this horrible public environment that we have created for ourselves. Let's try and rise up above that. Let's try and follow these mahasin al-akhlaq, these most beautiful character traits. Let's try and be good neighbours, in deed as well as in theory. And if we actually practice these things and acquire once again reputation for being khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas, the best community raised up for mankind, then we will find that the doors of Tawheed are opened and the people will join us, afwajan, because the other ideologies, the other worldviews and the other systems are currently shaking. People are doubting and people are increasingly retreating into themselves. This is not a happy age. The secular systems are not delivering. All kinds of people are suffering all kinds of inner ailments. But we have the alternative. We have the intact Sunnah, the Chosen One, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, transmitted to us faithfully by scholar after scholar after scholar, generation after faithful generation, from the earliest times of Islam. We have this beautiful form of life, the Sunnah, which is intact. Alone amongst the followers of the great spiritual ways of life in humanity do we have a complete and accurate description and mapping of the Chosen One. And this chain of narration, this sanad, this ijazah, that goes back to his time. This is our great good fortune. We worship as the founder of our religion worshipped. We give our zakat, we make our hajj, we perform our Ramadan. We are followers of him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in these ibadat. If we are followers of him also in our mu'amalat, in our akhlaq, once again we will be people of da'wah, be people of unity. We'll be a shining community, inshallah. And all these problems of which we complain will start to fall away like the autumn leaves, inshallah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us true followers of the Sunnah, to make us people who put the Sunnah into practice, to make us people who are inwardly illuminated by the Sunnah, to make us people of beautiful akhlaq, to make us people of deeds as well as words, and to make us people who come together by seeing the best in others rather than noticing their faults, and to be once again visibly the humanity, خير أمة أخرجت للناس, the best community brought out to mankind, inshallah. But this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes the Muslims to be. He wishes to see us in this position of unquestioned global, moral and spiritual and cultural eminence. So may Allah return us to that situation and help us in this moment to make the intention of being good neighbours, those who are close to us, those who are further, those who are Muslims, those who are not Muslims, that once again, inshallah, will become people whose tawheed is in their hearts rather than just on their tongues. Barakallahu fikum wa afu minkum wa salamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi.